When it comes to premium computer accessories, very few names spark as much attention as Logitech's MX Master series. Over the years, this lineup has carved a reputation for being the go-to mouse for professionals, creators, and productivity-focused users. Whenever a new MX Master model is on the horizon, people get curious. They want to know what has changed, what has stayed the same, and whether the new model is worth the upgrade. With the MX Master 4 slowly coming into focus through leaks, promo shots, and hands-on images, the conversation around it is growing. And in this section, we are going to take a deep dive into every little detail we know so far, explaining what the leaks tell us, why those details matter, and what they could mean for the future of Logitech's flagship productivity mouse. Let's begin with one of the most fundamental aspects of any device: the build quality. For weeks, there were questions floating around Reddit and other forums about whether Logitech was switching to new materials. Some people speculated about a shift to aluminum or other premium metals, while others guessed the company might experiment with glossy finishes. But after carefully examining the leaked images and user reports, it's now clear that the MX Master 4 continues with a plastic body. That might sound like a letdown at first, but it's worth clarifying. This is not the cheap, slippery plastic you often see on budget mice. Instead, Logitech seems to be sticking with a tried-and-true formula: a durable plastic with a matte texture that feels solid in hand. The finish is grippy enough to keep the mouse comfortable during long work sessions, yet not so sticky that it attracts dirt or oil easily. It's a balance between functionality and aesthetics, and for a productivity mouse that often gets used 8 to 10 hours a day, that balance matters far more than flashy materials. Now let's talk about one of the signature design elements of the MX Master series: the thumb rest. Logitech has always treated this part of the mouse with care, and with the MX Master 4, they appear to have made another subtle but meaningful refinement. Instead of using the sticky type of rubber that sometimes wears out or becomes unpleasant to touch over time, the MX Master 4 introduces a smoother, more polished rubber surface. This is important. If you've ever owned earlier MX Master models, you'll know that the thumb rest is one of the first areas to show signs of wear. By moving to a smoother rubber, Logitech may have found a way to keep the rest comfortable without compromising durability. Over the lifespan of the mouse, this small adjustment could mean fewer complaints about peeling or sticky textures. Again, it's a subtle change, but subtle changes often make the biggest difference in everyday use. Another area where leaks have shed light is the polling rate. For gamers, polling rate is a hot topic. It determines how often the mouse reports its position to the computer. Higher polling rates can mean more precise and responsive input. But here's the reality: the MX Master lineup has never been designed for gamers. It's built for productivity, multitasking, and long hours of work. According to the leaked details, both Bluetooth and Logitech's Logibolt wireless connection are locked at 125 Hz. That's the same as previous models, and it might disappoint anyone hoping for a jump. But from a practical standpoint, 125 Hz is more than enough for the kind of tasks this mouse is designed for. Whether you're editing documents, working with spreadsheets, or navigating creative software, you're unlikely to feel the difference between 125 Hz and a higher polling rate. This is a reminder that the MX Master series continues to prioritize stability, battery life, and reliability over raw gaming specs. Speaking of reliability, the underside of the MX Master 4 reveals a lot of telling details. In the leaked photos, the bottom of the mouse shows the familiar certification markings, including CE and UKCA approvals. There's also the Easy Switch button, which has become a hallmark of the MX Master line. This button allows users to connect the mouse to multiple devices and switch between them with a simple press. It's one of the key reasons why this series has become a favorite for people who juggle between a laptop, a desktop, and maybe even a tablet. Looking closely at the sensor placement, it appears Logitech has kept things largely in line with the previous generation. The consistency here makes sense. The MX Master 3 and 3S already had excellent tracking performance, capable of working on almost any surface including glass. Changing that formula wasn't necessary, but there are some tweaks worth noting. The glide pads or skates on the bottom of the mouse look slightly different. Their cutouts are bigger, and the geometry has been adjusted. These changes may sound minor, but they could translate into smoother movement or longer-lasting durability. If you've ever had an MX Master where the skates wore down unevenly, You'll know why this detail matters. Logitech seems to be paying attention to small quality-of-life improvements that help the mouse feel smoother across surfaces and maintain that feel over time. Again, not a headline feature, but an important one for day-to-day use. Let's move on to something that always raises questions whenever a new mouse comes out: the battery. The MX Master series has long been praised for its excellent battery life. On a full charge, these mice can last for weeks, sometimes even months depending on usage. But what happens when the battery eventually wears out after years of use? With the MX Master 4, the leaks suggest that Logitech is continuing the same approach as with the MX Master 3 and 3S. Officially, the battery is not user replaceable. On the surface, that sounds restrictive. However, a closer look at the leaked images shows exposed screws on the bottom of the mouse. And if past models are anything to go by, there are likely more screws hidden under the glide pads. For the average user, this means the battery replacement process isn't straightforward. But for someone handy with a screwdriver, it's very possible to replace the battery manually. This approach strikes an interesting balance. Logitech doesn't advertise user serviceability, but they also don't completely lock it down. For enthusiasts who want to extend the lifespan of their device, this is good news. Another detail that clears up earlier confusion involves the receiver included in the box. When the first promotional images surfaced, they heavily emphasized Bluetooth connectivity. That led some people to believe that Logitech might be phasing out the dedicated wireless receiver entirely. But leaked retail photos tell a different story. In the packaging, tucked neatly into the cardboard tray, there's still a Logibolt receiver. This matters more than it might seem at first glance. Bluetooth is convenient, yes, but it's not always the most stable or responsive option, especially in environments crowded with wireless signals. Having a dedicated receiver means you still get a more reliable, lag-free connection when you need it. It's reassuring to see that Logitech isn't forcing users to choose one or the other. They're still giving both options out of the box. Now let's address a pain point that frustrated many MX Master 3 users: the scrolling wheel hiccups. On paper, Logitech's MagSpeed scroll wheel is one of the best innovations in recent mouse history. It allows you to switch between a tactile step-by-step scroll and a free-spinning frictionless scroll. For navigating long documents or web pages, it's a dream. But in reality, some users experienced hiccups, moments where the scrolling wasn't as smooth as it should be, or where the switch between modes felt glitchy. The good news is that early impressions of the MX Master 4 suggest Logitech has finally sorted out this issue. If that holds true, it's one of the most meaningful fixes the company could have made. After all, the scroll wheel is one of the defining features of the MX Master lineup. Making it flawless in execution is critical. At this point, we can step back and look at the MX Master 4 as a whole. Is it a revolutionary upgrade? Not really. At least, not based on what the leaks have shown us so far. The core design remains familiar. The materials are refined but not radically different. The battery system works the same way as before. The polling rate is unchanged. What we're seeing is a product that builds on the strengths of its predecessors, while ironing out some of the rough edges. In a sense, this is very much in line with Logitech's philosophy for the MX Master series. Instead of reinventing the wheel every generation, they focus on making small but important improvements that keep the mouse reliable, comfortable, and effective for professional users. And that raises an interesting question: what does this approach say about Logitech's strategy? One way to look at it is that the MX Master has already reached a mature state. The shape, the ergonomics, the feature set, these elements have proven themselves over years of iteration. Rather than disrupting that formula, Logitech is polishing it, making sure each new model is a little bit better, a little bit more refined. Some might criticize this as being too conservative. But for the target audience, the professionals who buy these mice, it's arguably the right move. Radical changes might risk alienating users who depend on the consistency of the MX Master for their daily workflows. Small, thoughtful changes, on the other hand, improve the experience without disrupting it. Another perspective is that Logitech is playing the long game. By keeping the MX Master series stable, they build trust and loyalty. Users know that when they upgrade, they'll get something familiar but also slightly improved. Over time, this creates a product line that feels reliable, dependable, and professional. That's not something you can say about every mouse on the market. In summary, Section 1 of our deep dive into the MX Master 4 is all about the fundamentals. We've explored the build quality, the material choices, the refinements to the thumb rest, the unchanged but practical polling rate, the details revealed on the base, the subtle improvements to the glide pads, the semi-serviceable battery design, the reassurance of a Logi-Bolt receiver still being included, and the fix to the scrolling hiccups that annoyed so many users before. Each of these points might not sound groundbreaking on its own, but together they paint a picture of a mouse that takes what already worked and makes it a little better. That's the essence of the MX Master 4 so far. Not a revolution, but an evolution. And for many people, that's exactly what they want in their daily work companion. First, let's think about expectations. Every time Logitech releases a new MX Master, people expect big things. This isn't just a random mouse upgrade. It's an event. Professionals who depend on their tools every day want to know if the new version will fix old problems and make their work easier. With the MX Master 4, expectations were high. People wanted longer battery life, more durable materials, and maybe even higher performance. Some dreamed about new features like haptic feedback in the scroll wheel, higher polling rates, or even a modular design with customizable parts. But from what we've seen, Logitech has chosen refinement over revolution. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. Think about it this way. When you're working 8 or more hours a day, what matters most is reliability. A mouse that doesn't break down. A scroll wheel that feels consistent. A thumb rest that doesn't wear out. These aren't flashy features, but they're the things that keep people loyal to a product. Logitech understands this. They know their audience isn't chasing gimmicks. They're chasing stability. So while the MX Master 4 might not tick every wishlist item, it delivers steady improvements that matter in the long run. Now let's talk about market positioning. The MX Master series is not cheap. It sits at the premium end of the mouse market, and that's intentional. Logitech isn't trying to compete with $20 budget mice. They're targeting professionals who are willing to pay more for comfort, features, and reliability. Think of graphic designers, video editors, coders, financial analysts, or anyone who spends all day on a computer. For these people, a good mouse is an investment, not just a purchase. By keeping the MX Master series consistent and refined, Logitech strengthens its image as the leader in professional input devices. But Logitech isn't alone in this space. Let's compare. Microsoft's Surface Precision Mouse is one of the main competitors. It offers a clean design, solid ergonomics, and multi-device pairing. But when stacked against the MX Master, it often feels less innovative. The scroll wheel doesn't match Logitech's MagSpeed system, and the thumb rest isn't as comfortable. Then there's Apple's Magic Mouse. Sleek, minimal, and stylish, but for many professionals, it's uncomfortable for long use. Its flat design simply doesn't provide the ergonomic support that the MX Master does. Razer has also tried to enter the productivity space with models like the Razer Pro Click, which offers high DPI and reliable wireless performance. But once again, Logitech's advantage lies in its careful balance of features, comfort, and trust built over years. This brings us back to why Logitech can afford to play it safe with the MX Master 4. They don't need to reinvent the wheel because the competition isn't offering anything drastically better. Instead, Logitech focuses on polishing what already works and reinforcing its leadership in this niche. But what about the users? Are they satisfied with small refinements? That depends. Some users are thrilled to see issues like the scroll wheel hiccups finally resolved. Others appreciate the continued inclusion of the Logi-Bolt receiver. But there are always those who want more. For instance, many hoped for customizable buttons with OLED labels, or maybe built-in memory for macros and profiles. Some wished for swappable parts, so they could replace a worn-out thumb rest or upgrade the scroll wheel without buying a whole new mouse. None of these dreams have come true yet, but that doesn't mean they never will. Logitech has a history of introducing new ideas slowly, one step at a time. Another area worth exploring is hidden features. With early leaks, we rarely get the full story. Logitech might still have some surprises when the MX Master 4 officially launches. For example, there could be firmware improvements that enhance performance or new options in the Logitech Options Plus software. Maybe there will be new gestures supported by the thumb button, or improved cross-computer functionality through Logitech Flow. Sometimes the biggest improvements aren't in the hardware, but in the software that drives it. Until the official release, these possibilities remain open.